United States. The United States is one country, but it's also a bunch of states. You could almost say it's a group of states that are, well, united. When our country was born, 13 states already existed. Each one had been a British colony before gaining independence from Britain after the Revolutionary War. These new states wanted to come together as one nation, but they also wanted to be independent. After all, they just won their freedom from a powerful government. They needed a central government that would share power with the states, and that's exactly what they created when they wrote the Constitution. Let's get together. Each state already had its own government and court system, so the new Americans weren't exactly running amok. But if the new United States was going to be able to deal with other nations, it needed one government that would speak for the entire country. It also needed one central government to do things like declare war on other countries, keep a military, and negotiate treaties with other countries. There also needed to be federal courts where citizens from different states could resolve their disputes. Government on two levels. The United States Constitution creates a central government known as the federal government. The federal government deals with issues that affect the entire country. Each state also has its own state government that handles the affairs of that state. This division of power between a central government and state governments is called federalism. The federal government gets all of its power from the Constitution. In order to keep the federal government from becoming too powerful, the Constitution says that any power not given to the federal government is a power the states or the people keep for themselves. These powers are said to be reserved to the states. There are also a few powers that both the states and the federal government share. These are called concurrent powers because concurrent means happening at the same time. The Supremacy Clause. Before the Constitution, the United States tried another type of government that was very weak. It wasn't able to get much done because states could just ignore all the laws it passed, and they did. The Constitution has some very important language to prevent this. The Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. That means that the federal laws passed by Congress are supreme. They are superior to state laws. The founders of our country learned from experience that this was necessary in order to give for the federal government to keep the power the Constitution gives it. Federal power, expressed powers. The Constitution gives Congress two types of powers. The most obvious type is expressed powers. When you express yourself, you state how you feel. Similarly, expressed powers are actually stated or expressed in the Constitution. Each branch has expressed powers, but you mostly hear this term in reference to Congress. That's because the Constitution gives a long list of powers that Congress has. For example, Congress has the power to coin money, declare war, and establish immigration laws. Some of the president's expressed powers include negotiating treaties with other countries, nominating justices to the Supreme Court, and pardoning people who have committed a federal crime. Federal power, implied powers. Implied powers are not expressly stated in the Constitution. When you imply something, your intention is clear even though you don't actually say it. For example, if you have permission to go to the mall, you probably also have permission to go into the stores in the mall. Permission to go into the stores is implied. In the Constitution, the implied powers of Congress come from the Necessary and Proper Clause. This is a part of the Constitution that says Congress may make any law that is necessary and proper for carrying out its expressed powers. So the Constitution doesn't say Congress has the power to create a postal service website, but it does say Congress can establish post offices. Permission to create the website is implied because it is necessary and proper to running the post office. Federal power in action. Sometimes Congress exercises powers it does not appear to have. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a good example. Congress wanted to prohibit racial discrimination in America, but that's not on the list of powers that Congress has. So how could Congress do this? They did it by finding a link between racial discrimination and interstate commerce, something Congress does have power over. The Civil Rights Act prohibits racial discrimination by any facility that has anything to do with interstate commerce, which almost everything does. Finding these kinds of links is how Congress takes many actions that, at first, appear to be beyond its power. Today's Federalism Debate. Just as when the nation was born, many people today are concerned about a powerful federal government. They worry that their freedom will be limited if the federal government makes decisions that should be made by local governments. At the same time, others worry that some issues need one decision that applies to everyone. They believe that it isn't fair when some states do more or less to address a problem than other states. If you follow the news, you'll see the federalism debate everywhere. Does the federal government have the power to pass laws about guns, healthcare, schools? The variety of opinions on these questions are all part of the 200-year-old struggle between federal and state power. If not federalism, then what? When the founders wrote the Constitution, they could have chosen any type of government. What if they had chosen something else? Would it have lessened the power struggle between the states and the central government? Maybe, but there are benefits and drawbacks to any type of government. The following activity compares federalism with the other two forms of government. Read about each type and mark each characteristic with an S if it's a strength and a W if it's a weakness. What role does the central government play? While I'm going through the next three examples, I am going to be giving you two answers for each, and what I would like you to do is figure out the answer for the other two on your own. So continue to follow along with what I'm doing. I'll describe why I am picking strength or weakness for each option. Federal, set of chairs. The states and central government must work together and balance each other out, like a set of chairs around the table. A federal form of government splits power between independent states and the central government. The power rests in both places, and each gets its authority from a governing document like the U.S. Constitution. Independent branches inside the central government may also share power. There is national unity, but local governments can act as well. Citizens have more opportunities to be heard. Services can be duplicated by different levels of government. Disputes occur between national power and states' rights. Let's pick a strength out of those. Well, wherever I see there is national unity, but local governments can act as well, that means that they are sharing powers and that more people's needs can be met. So I'm going to go ahead and call that one a strength. Of the remaining three, I need to pick one weakness. And I'm going to go with services that are being duplicated by different levels of government. The reason why that's a weakness is that it's inefficient, that it would be more effective if only one or the other would take care of a certain thing, but when they're both doing it, it can lead to further conflicts, and overall, people may not even get the help that they need because there's just too much going on. Confederal, many different chairs. A confederation of states is like a bunch of different chairs grouped together. They hold power independently but work collectively. The confederal form of government is an association of independent states. The central government gets its authority from those independent states. Power rests in each individual state whose representatives meet to address the needs of the group. America tried a confederal system before the Constitution. It didn't work because the states did not give the central government enough power to do its job. Keeps power of the government at the local level. States cooperate without losing their independence. Central government may be too weak to be effective. Laws may differ from state to state. No uniformity. I'm going to pick my strength and weakness. Let's start with our strength. Keeping the power of government at a local level can be a very good thing because it means that the government is more reactive to what's going on and it can better help its citizens because it's closer to the citizens. Our weakness from this list can be that a weak central government can be a huge, huge problem, which we saw when we discussed the Articles of the Confederation. Whenever the government needed to get something done, it did not have the power to do that. And our last one is a unitary form of government, one big chair. A unitary government is like one really big chair with all the government's power sitting in one place. In a unitary form of government, all power rests in a central government. The government may be divided into states or other subunits, but they have no power of their own. For example, England depends on its parliament, a legislative body, to create and enforce laws in the country. The leader of the nation, the prime minister, is a member of the parliament and does not have any more power than its members. So let's look at what we have here: uniform laws, policies, and enforcement across the country, little conflict between state and national governments. Government may be slow to meet local problems and difficult to meet all the needs of all the citizens. Our strength there is absolutely, it is nice to have uniform laws, policies, and enforcement across the country. For example, we may have a law here in Pennsylvania that they do not have in Ohio, or vice versa. So if you do something that would be considered legal in Pennsylvania, it could be illegal in Ohio, and you could get into a lot of trouble for something that you didn't know was illegal. So having uniform laws, policies, and enforcement across the country makes things a little bit more convenient and easy to remember. For our weakness, government may be slow to meet local problems. It's like the opposite of the confederal system, where the government is a little bit closer to the people and can respond to problems much easier. On the other hand, a unitary system is going to be slow because it is so much larger and a little bit further away from the people. Federal Powers Cheat Sheet. All of this is from Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution and tells you what the U.S. government can do. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, but all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. To borrow money on the credit of the United States, to regulate commerce with foreign nations among the several states and with the Indian tribes, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States, to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States, to establish post offices and post roads, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court, to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations, to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money shall be for a longer term than 2 years, to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress, to exercise exclusive education in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may, by secession of particular states, and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state, which shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, and to make all laws which be necessary and proper for carrying into the execution of the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government for the United States, or in any department or officer thereof. Woo! Here's what you need to do to make sure you finish everything you need to do today. Number 1, take the quiz. You know the deal with the quizzes. 3 questions, 6 points total, 1 point just for answering a question, 2 points for getting it right, 0 points for not getting it done on time. Open book, open note, and open internet. Find your answers where you can get them. Go back and listen to the video to find answers, or check out the reading on your own, and then you want to complete the review activities. They are checked for completion. Answers are provided on the following slides, along with guidance and instruction to find correct answers. There is always feedback submitted for your review activities.